I think that the whole thing with Dylan Mulvaney kind of highlights this fetishism in a way that is pretty alarming. Okay, when you look at someone like Dylan Mulvaney, you can't help but question, is this just fetishism? Because there is a real thing of gender dysphoria, okay, which we've talked about. Like, gender dysphoria is a real mental disorder that has to do with people feeling like they are in the wrong bodies. But there's also this hypersexualized, like this sexually charged thing that people do where they decide to cosplay as the other gender and then it becomes a whole personality trait. Like, for example, Leah Thomas. Okay, I don't know if Paula Scanlon has told this story. Shout out to Paula Scanlon. I've mentioned her many of times. She's a good friend of mine. She actually was teammates with the notorious Leah Thomas, the swimmer that went up against Riley Gaines and they had the whole situation that went down. But the tea on Leah Thomas, allegedly, according to Paula Scanlon was the initial whistleblower on all things Leah Thomas. She was the initial person. She was in the What is a Woman documentary. She has been telling this story, and she almost got kicked out of her university her Ivy League university for it. She talks very extensively about how Leah, in the early days of transitioning, which happened before the pandemic, just so you know how long that had been going on, talked about how Leah Thomas's girlfriend at the time was actually, how does this go? So Leah is now the girl, and Leah's boyfriend is actually a trans male. So Leah's boyfriend is actually a biological female, while Leah is a biological male. And their entire transition allegedly started because they had this sexual kink for role play and switching, roles and positions in the dynamic of the relationship, and particularly in sex. This is why I say so many of our problems in our society come from pornography. So when it's all said and done, it's like, that is a fetish. That is a fetish that you are now living out in your day-to-day life. If what Paula is saying is true, which she's never had a reason to lie. She had nothing to lose. Or no, she had everything, literally everything to lose. Ivy League, athlete, good grades, great family, all that, had everything to lose, and she still had the audacity to speak out. And she really almost lost everything until people finally started catching wind of this story. So that is what I'm talking about. A lot of this trans representation is now being hijacked by people who are just sexually fetishizing the idea of cosplaying the other gender. And when I say cosplay, I'm very particular in that term because you have someone like Dylan Mulvaney who is very excessively calling themselves a girl or a little girl on top of that at times. It's one thing for Dylan to go out and say like, oh, I'm a woman now, but to go and say that you're a girl and cosplaying being a little girl, for example, here's a clip.
I am Eloise. I am 6. I'm a city child. I live at the Plaza Hotel, which is huge and wonderful and très elegant, especially at Christmas time.
That made me want to sip bleach. But that's gross. That's actually gross. Like, are we, like, that is so, like, to me, it's giving PDF file illic. Y'all, again, I'm on YouTube. I'm doing my best to not get demonetized. I need my coins. But is that not creepy? And I've said this before time and time again. I actually wanted to write an op-ed about it, but it freaked me out too much, so I stopped writing it. But fighting PDF files continues to be arguably the biggest struggle and needing to be the biggest priority in our country that not enough people realize. And, pornography is a big part of that. When like it's Fragger you. Let me keep it PG. But all that to say, there is way too much of this type of dynamic of people cosplaying little kids that happens in this world of fetishism. I'll just put it that way. And seeing Dylan not only being a trans girl or trans woman, but to cosplay being a little girl and like acting like a 12-year-old, that's very weird. That's very fetishy. It's scary and alarming to me. And someone did call Dylan out on it. And this was Dylan's explanation of why they refer to themselves as a girl and not a woman.
Day 8 of being a girl, and I've gotten some messages that are saying that I need to be calling myself a woman and not a girl. And I didn't even know that some women were offended by being called girls, so that's really good to know. But for me, the word girl feels great because I never got to be one growing up. And it feels
Oh,
very
imagine that.
able to make mistakes and growing and changing and evolving, whereas the word woman feels very strong and confident and powerful, and that still intimidates me a little bit. So I'm gonna keep calling myself a girl. Hope that's okay. Love ya.
I cannot get demonetized. Oh Lord, I have so much to say. I might have to make a Patreon and start saying what I really gotta say about this. But crazy. Like, put the little girl in a straitjacket, crazy. And again, this is just decaying the credibility of the transgender movement, because you had people like, I remember growing up seeing people like Laverne Cox and Chaz Bono, for example. And these were trans people that when I was a kid, I was like, oh, that's interesting. That was that was the first time I had really heard of it. Also, like, Jazz Jennings is out there, but Laverne Cox, I don't really hear Laverne talk about being transgender that often. Laverne Cox is actually a really talented actress. So it's like, that was the direction that things were going. Chaz Bono, again, people often talked about Chaz Bono just like, oh yeah, that's Cher's son. Like, nobody really cared that much. If anything, people were fascinated, but it wasn't this like fixation of all of our society of people trying to figure out what is going on here. And these people had some credibility, to be honest. To this day, I don't think, I haven't really kept up with their careers, but to this day, I don't think that they do anything over the top when it comes to their trans activism. They're just living their lives. They're just people who are chilling. They're just people who are living their life and identifying the way that they want to. And honestly, I have some respect for that. To an extent, like, I do have some respect for that. If you are, like, they seem genuinely happy and like they're doing the thing, they're not making a whole spectacle of it. They seem like they're minding their business, is what I'm trying to say. Laverne Cox, Chaz Bono, minding their own business. So nobody is really coming for them. Nobody's really checking them. But when you have someone like Dylan Mulvaney, who has been wildly overexposed and doing these type of things, it really makes the trans movement look a little crazy. It makes them look less credible, and it's really damaging to the LGBT community. And I'm surprised that it's taken so long for the LGBT community to speak up and talk about, like, hey, like, you are harming us over here. And I'm surprised that more people aren't, actually, you know what, shout out to Amir Odom, because Amir Odom actually just made a video about this, and he's a prime example of somebody in the LGBT community that has been very vocal about how much this is damaging their credibility. And Lily Tino, is that the name? Lily Tino? Lily Tino is another one of these trans TikTokers that has been way overexposed. You cannot open your app without seeing Lily Tino. And just a few days ago, actually, Amir made this really strong video about why Lily Tino gets so much hate. And it's beyond just being transgender. It has to do with just the pretentiousness and the over emotionalness and just like all the different delusions that gets put out there that is completely making their community lose credibility. So it's like, it's just corny. It's corny, it's sad, it's tired, it's late, it's played out. And again, I just feel bad for the people that are like Laverne Cox and Chaz Bono, who didn't want anything to do with this modern wave of trans TikTokers that's going on.